He must be Newcastle's best-known pharmacist. For 53 years in Mayfield and 9 years before that at Hamilton, Mr Glass has been providing a vital service for locals, dispensing medication and always on hand to listen and advise. But it's more than just a job, it's a lifetime's dedication.
I only come down in the morning at 8 and forget home about, leave here about 9:30 at night.
And when was the last time you took a lunch break?
Oh, years ago, many years ago. I don't have time for that nonsense.
Of course, pharmacies have changed dramatically over the years, substantially increasing their lines to stay solvent. But the government's cutbacks in dispensing fees is the biggest threat that Mr Glass has experienced.
The government are going to try and send us broke, of course, but I think that'll be straightened out. They can't go on or they will have no chemists left.
Next week, the Sol Pattinson bosses will honour his years of loyalty with a special dinner at Sydney's Intercontinental Hotel. But in no way does this celebration mark an imminent retirement.
I was apprenticed to Mr Pattinson, the founder of the firm, original founder, and he kept coming into the office every day till he was 94. So I've got something to beat.
More than 20,000 people worldwide have sat in on Dr Daniel Tompkins' computer lectures. 35 years in the game, he has 3 books to his credit and has already been to Australia 3 times. This, though, is his first visit to Newcastle, and Dr Tompkins is eager to see how far the Hunters business people have progressed in the technology field. His seminar, arranged by the university's Community Programs Department, will go under the title How to Make Money Out of Computers, and according to Dr Tompkins, will cover a host of areas most Novocastrians wouldn't even be aware of.
We're going to talk about word processing, computer consulting, desktop publishing. We'll talk about being an information broker. We'll talk about having a database and hooking your computer up to a modem and having people tap into it and paying for their password to get into your database. We're going to talk about puzzles and music. We're going to talk about the retail business, assembling clones.
Dr Tompkins says the key problem with computers is most people are afraid of them, but he's confident his lectures this weekend will leave some buffs at least feeling a little braver if they're prepared to accept what he believes are the basic rules for computer use in business.
The bank had just opened for trading when staff were confronted by 2 men, one brandishing a handgun. Detectives were at the scene shortly after, and staff, although badly shaken, were able to give them valuable information.
This fellow threatened the staff and pointed his handgun at the staff, so they were quite distressed and were filling out description forms of the 2 offenders at the time.
They're able to give you some good information?
They have been very good in the descriptions they have given us, despite the fact that both men were wearing balaclavas.
The men fled on foot down a side street directly opposite the bank. Police combing the suburb were given more help by surprised workers who'd seen the fugitives. It's understood the men made off with several $1,000s in cash. Meanwhile, puzzled customers were given curbside service by staff while scientific detectives gathered more evidence inside the bank. Late this evening, police had scaled down the hunt for the robbers, but they say they have a number of strong leads.
Fisheries Inspector Graham Austin discovered the netting off Wangi Point while on a routine patrol early Thursday morning. There were 2 nets, both illegal for different reasons. Mass netting is prohibited in daylight hours at this time of year, and using this net is illegal at any time. The reason? It's nylon single-strand construction.
If the net happens to wash away or be lost somehow, it ghost fishes. That is, it continues fishing. A fish will swim into it and get caught and then die. Another fish will come in after it and it will get caught and it continues on fishing forever.
Some fishermen ignore the rules as the net is more effective than the legal kind. In just a few hours it had trapped 15 or 16 kilos of fish, most unfortunately dead before they could be released.
That's a good fish, isn't he? Yeah.
Most disturbing, according to the officers, is that the net looks to have been made by a professional fisherman who would know the rules.
I think I've got a fair idea who owns it.
And while one patrol was bringing in the illegal nets, another was targeting an amateur, flaunting the rules of lobster catching. Discovering 6 lobster pots off South Swansea headland, fisheries inspectors waited until the owner came to collect his catch and then confronted him. Amateur fishermen may only have 1 lobster pot and take 1 lobster a day. The Swansea man admitted having 6 and faces fines of up to $2,000. The big winners were the lobsters, who now get a second chance.
Mr Barrack said it would have an enormous impact on industrial relations, allowing as it will for individual workplace agreements and the banning of strikes, and he said it would go even further.
The legislation interfaces with the Essential Services Bill, which really goes down a track of, without using a cliche, taking this state down the path to a police state.
Mr Barrack also said the legislation would put industrial relations back 25 years at least in New South Wales and has nothing of merit to workers.
I don't think employers are sitting out there being strapped for want of getting out to negotiate wages and conditions upwards. Quite obviously the intent is to free up the market, by which there would be a reduction in living standards. Certainly the intent is also to reduce the influence of the trade union movement.
The state's Get Tough approach to skateboarders will give greater authority to local government. Councils will have the right to restrict riding in areas where there's a high risk of collision with pedestrians. Busy footpaths, shopping areas and malls are potentially off limits. Skaters risk a caution and ultimately confiscation of their boards if they breach the new restrictions, an initiative bound to fuel controversy amongst riders.
It's a bit of an infringement of rights to take the skateboard off the actual person. It's like driving a car when you get caught for speeding. You don't get your car taken off you.
Transport Minister Bruce Baird has rejected an outright ban on skateboarders using footpaths, as this would lead to more riders on the roads and certain safety problems. But he does intend to ban skateboards on main roads. Still, it remains to be seen if councils will enforce their new powers. Lake Macquarie Mayor Ivan Welsh says his officers aren't about to start confiscating boards. Likewise, Newcastle Council is reluctant to rely on the heavy-handed approach.
Well, it will certainly be an assistance as a backup to our current policies on skateboards, but certainly not the primary weapon in coming to terms with them.
Both Lake Macquarie and Newcastle councils prefer to tackle the issue of skateboard safety by encouraging riders to use planned council facilities. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
Yes, Mike, it is an early start to the season. Here we are the first week in November, and already the Knights are here at Stockton preparing for their 1990 campaign. With me now is Alan McMahon. And Alan, it seems like the season just seems to be getting quicker and quicker.
Well, actually, Darren, this is the latest we've started for the 2 previous seasons. We've started much earlier in October, so this is the latest we've started.
Already in the pre-season, we've seen a few local boys come to the Knights side. Todd Anderson and Darren Slockley. How are they going to slot in?
Well, they've just started with us, and both of them had slight introductions to the Knights last year in a couple of the games, and they performed quite well, and we want to enhance upon that and get them even better.
Of course, we've also got a few buys. We've got Marty Croker from New Zealand and Adrian Brunker from Queensland.
Yeah, we've got Adrian, the Rookie of the Year, which was a great honour for him, and we're certainly looking for big things from Adrian, and also Marty Croker, who's an experienced player from New Zealand, and he was injured for most of last season, so we're certainly looking for big things of those guys.
So early in the season, what sort of things have you got the boys doing?
Well, they'll be doing all sorts of training in regards to football, and every type of thing that they'll be doing in their pre-season will be based around a football in their hands. So we're trying to bring the game relatively back to the training paddock as much as possible. And I think basically we're trying to keep them off the roads and try and preserve their bodies. And Mark Sargent just scored his first try for the season. So that's good.
It's also good to see many of the boys having picked up a bit of post-season flab.
Most of them are pretty well, look after themselves most of the year, and a lot of them have been doing things now, even before tonight's training sessions, and that's how the athlete of the football era is getting.
There we have it, Mike, the start of the 1990 season, already in progress here at Stockton, the first week in November.
More than 50 craft of all shapes, sizes and colours took the salute from Club Commodore Ray Kiley. The blessing was by Father Peter Ashley Brown. Also in the official party was Vice Commodore of Lake Macquarie Yacht Club, Pam Parker. She's the only woman flag officer of a major yachting club in Australia. Along with Pam, Paul Hannon, the Rear Commodore, greeted the passing yachts, as did Mayor of Lake Macquarie, Ivan Welsh. Etchells, Diamonds, Flying 15s, cruising yachts and motor cruisers all took part. However, the camaraderie on show will quickly disappear after the parade when the 1989-90 season racing begins. And it's said out Belmont Way, no one likes coming second.
World champion Rhys Duncan and Aussie champ John Christensen didn't have to get wet today as they are seeded through to tomorrow's third round. But 60 paddlers took to the waves to try and win their way through to the third round. Competing in 5 events, the aspiring winners turned on some great manoeuvres, impressing the judges with their skills. Local riders performed well, with Cole Samways, Larry Adams, Jason Moffat and John Ulm, just 4 Newcastle entries to remain in the Wavemaster Pro Classic. Tomorrow, the third round will be followed by the quarter and semi-finals, with a showdown for the crown on at midday. On a wicket that gave very little to the bowlers, Newcastle's batsmen took full toll of anything that wasn't right up. An opening stand of 66 between Daly and Mace gave the locals the start they wanted, and when Kelleher joined Steve Mace, it was the signal for a run spree. Illawarra couldn't take a trick as this dumping went astray. Mace hammered the attack to all points of the ground in a glorious display of controlled aggression. Twice in 1 over, Mace went down on one leg and hoiked the ball to the fence. 1 bounce and into the pickets. While Mace stormed his way towards 3 figures, Kelleher showed that he wasn't going to be outdone with delicate leg glances and with a death swipe hooking the ball to the fence. The shot of the day, a square drive by Mace to the boundary. However, with the score at 2 for 189 and Mace on 96, he got an outside edge and he departed the scene 4 runs short of a worthy century.
A constant stream of teenagers filed into Stockton Police Station today, all guests at Friday night's birthday party at the Stockton North Surf Club. Many clutched bags containing clothes they wore on the night to present to police for inspection.
We're slowly getting a picture of the people that were there and what they did. There's certainly about 60 young people aged between 13 and 17. We know there was a band playing. We know that there was some alcohol consumed.
Police say Lee was last seen alive between 9:30 and 10 p.m. Her naked body was later found 100 metres from the party, which had spilled out onto the beach. Police say the 14-year-old was struck in the head with a rock. Today, police sifted through the accounts of many of the young partygoers.
She's just telling everyone to go away.
She seemed upset in the night?
Yeah.
We believe she did become upset during the night, but that's still being looked at.
As the details of Friday night's events in Stockton unfold, the community is asking questions.
I'm appalled that such a situation could be allowed to happen. I'm shocked that these young people were unsupervised, that they had such ready access to alcohol.
Where were the parents? Why didn't they go into it a bit further? And also on this invitation it's got BYO, bring your own grog, I presume. I don't think there'd be much Coke or lemonade. The invitation says from 7 p.m. till dawn and sleeping over in the club. And they had a live band on by the name of Cardinal Sin.
Nicole McGregor was a close friend of the murdered girl. She was invited to the party, but unlike many of her schoolmates at Newcastle High, she didn't go. However, as Lee requested at school on Friday, Nicole promised to phone her on the following morning to see how the party went.
Then I rang Lee and there was no answer, so I rang her friend and her mother told me that she had been murdered and raped.
Police are still to interview a further 20 partygoers. They've appealed to anyone in the vicinity of Stockton North Surf Club on Friday night to come forward. Leslie Robinson, for NBN News.
The horses were conspicuously absent in Newcastle today, but no one seemed to notice at any of the dozens of Cup Day functions being held around the city. From the waterfront to the western suburbs, champagne corks popped and last-minute tips were exchanged in an atmosphere as electrifying as that of the car park at Flemington. Down on Queen's Wharf, the celebrating was done in style. 3 separate functions in the Elizabeth's complex attracted close to 600 guests. Lobster, caviar and Great Western were being splashed about liberally by guests, and with a pleasant breeze and some good music to keep them entertained, it was very easy for many to forget what the real reason for the celebration was.
I came for lunch. I didn't know there was a Melbourne Cup on. Come here for a drink. I don't even know which horses are running today.
At the Apollo at Charlestown, the traditional Melbourne Cup Day fashion parade added some extra interest, and to add a little authenticity, there was even a Fashions of the Field, with many of the finalists displaying garb that would do the members' enclosure at Flemington proud. Over in the auditorium at West Leagues Club, though, the emphasis was clearly on racing, with a giant television screen keeping the 400 guests up to date with the latest action from the course. The club conducted an amazing 120 sweeps, ensuring plenty of financial interest when the big race got underway, and dozens of happy winners when the time came to collect their spoils.
I didn't think it had a chance. I thought Empire Rose was going to win, and up it came.
What did you think when you drew it in the sweep?
Not much.
What did you think when you saw it bolting away in the straight? I couldn't see. I haven't got my glasses, so I couldn't see the thing.
Yesterday there were 10 detectives on the case. This afternoon there are 20 working around the clock. Most are involved in taking a second round of statements from the 50 teenagers who attended the party in a building which used to be headquarters to the now disbanded North Stockton Surf Club. Detective Sergeant Lance Chaffee says very few of the people they've spoken to are no longer suspects. However, he confirmed that blood samples have been taken from several partygoers.
We've taken a number of samples of blood, but that's a usual procedure in these sorts of matters.
Detectives extended their inquiries with the discovery that the teenage beach party wasn't the only one that night. Just around the corner, another group was celebrating a 21st birthday at the Prawners Club. There were grandparents and children at this occasion, and it's understood it was conducted more responsibly than the nearby beach party. However, when it wound up at 2 a.m, a number of people did go over to that other party, and their names have now joined a lengthy list of people yet to be cleared of suspicion.
Well, we've been told 3 or 4 people did go from the other party to the party where the murder took place, and they have been interviewed.
Are you happy with their account of what happened?
Well, that's subject to further investigation at the party.
The police rescue squad and detectives from Mayfield joined the police dog and handler for a follow-up search of the derelict building overlooking Throsby Creek. The women's clothing, down to underwear and a sock, were found scattered about the loading bay on Monday. Police immediately scoured the neighbourhood for some trace of the owner. Today, still uneasy about a lack of a result, detectives made a second sweep. The mystery remains unsolved, and police say there's little they can do now but wait for reports of a missing person. Meanwhile, homicide detectives continue inquiries into the murder of Fern Bay teenager Lee Lee. Police have set up a mobile command post to ease pressure on the overcrowded police station and to speed up a process of re-interviewing about 75 teenagers known to have attended a beach party on Friday night. Detectives aren't speaking publicly about their findings, but it's understood they are now focusing their inquiries on party-goers. Despite the complexity of the case, police say they remain confident of an early breakthrough.
Brian McCarthy's trip to Newcastle yesterday spawned one of the most topical and well-attended meetings of Trades Hall Council in a long time. Every seat in the conference room was filled. Some delegates even stood outside. But while the support was there in numbers, it didn't flow on to the pilots' demand for a wage increase.
I don't think anyone in the trade union movement supports the original claim of the pilots in respect to their wages, but it appears to me that now that's a non-issue, that's gone by the board, and there are other matters of concern.
Only the night before, Brian McCarthy had addressed a similar meeting in Mount Isa. There the support had been 100%, but in an interview with John Church on the Newsnight program last night, just after the Newcastle conference, he was quick to brush aside any disappointment.
I was very happy. I wasn't going there for support, I was going there to tell them the truth and how the dispute has been started and prolonged by Sir Peter Abels and the Prime Minister, and they accepted that, and the resolution they passed was very helpful.
There was, however, no division when it came to condemning the federal government's handling of the issue. Both parties were quick to belt out a resolution which will go to federal cabinet with an ominous warning of electoral backlash if the government doesn't soften its stand. Early in the dispute, there was general opposition to the pilot's stand. Brian McCarthy was often the brunt of much harsh criticism from the public. Last night, however, Council Secretary Peter Barrick accompanied Mr McCarthy into the bar at Newcastle Workers Club. And there, he said, there was no question of where the support of the rank and file now lies.
People were quite happy to come up and talk to him, discuss the dispute, shake his hand and generally give him comfort.